Hello everybody! Welcome to my first knitting podcast. I'm pretty excited and have kind of a plan, but not a super solid plan, so we'll see how this goes. My name's Stephanie. I live on the west coast of Canada on an island called Vancouver Island. It's pretty temperate here all year, but when the winter comes it's very humid, so I do love my little woolly things to keep me warm. Because this is my first episode, I'm just going to show you some of the things that I've made somewhat recently. I'm not an insane knitter, I don't knit like crazy all the time, but I do really enjoy it as a way to calm down in the evenings, or if I'm going out for a little walk, it gives me something to keep my hands busy. I do have an Instagram account, it's Fluffandyarnstuffs. On Ravelry I'm also Fluffandyarnstuff, just without the S because of the character count limit. I'm a bit more active on Instagram and I don't really use Ravelry, but I might get a little bit more into that if everybody here seems to want something like that. If that's what floats your guys' boat, just let me know. I'd love to get more active in the knitting community this winter, so that's why I'm starting this podcast. Anyway, so recently it's gotten a little bit colder again and we've started having to wear bike mittens and that kind of stuff. I used to always just wear nice thin ones, but once it gets cold you don't really have a choice. So in the spring I actually finished these mittens. I kind of call them my Vulcan mittens because it keeps your fingers separate. I thought this was really good for biking because it keeps you in the buddy system, so your fingers still can keep each other a little bit warm, but you still get that dexterity to be able to control the bike. I previously did make a really nice pair of mittens like this. They're actually 4 fingers though. I really liked them, but then they grew after I used them a few times, so I had to give them away. What I thought was really nice about this one that haven't had them stretch out too much yet is on the inside. I'm not sure if I can show you super well, but the number of floats, sort of, or like the purling side is actually super dense. So basically I did like a color work type thing where I kind of, every other round I knitted the opposite stitch, so it kind of was as if I was using 2 yarns and kind of alternating which one. So it just makes it a little bit more dense. It doesn't quite stretch out as much, but it is a lot thicker, and it is finally starting to felt a little bit on the inside, which I'm very excited about. And then it's got this just squishy 1x1 double thick brim, but my dad is a huge Star Trek fan, so live long and prosper. Yeah, I'd highly recommend doing this kind of thing if you are a cyclist, because I found that keeping my fingers glued together has been really nice. I didn't use a pattern, I kind of just did my own little gauge swatch and went for it, and it worked out really well. And I actually have a couple friends who cycle who would also like a pair, so maybe I'll work on those and add it to my list of things to do for the winter. In the spring I finished a few items. I made a few toques that were kind of similar. One of them was actually mirror image, but I don't have those ones anymore. So this one is a sort of 11-11. It's just a hand warmer. So this is really cozy on the inside. Those floats, because this is unspun, they're super plushy. I like that you can see the pattern on the inside too. And I just did alternating colors, do some helical knitting in the ribs and the outside. And so far I really like this for going on walks. It's pretty windproof, and it's another one that I designed myself. I like to kind of gauge swatch and design things in Microsoft Excel. I'm not sure how many of you guys like to do that too, so I don't tend to buy other patterns because I just get all these ideas that I really want to knit up. I do still have all of my Excel files and notes and that kind of stuff. I've got this little book, just got a tiger on it, and I like to kind of write out little knitting notes in there. So if anybody does want a reference of something that I'm showing you, I might be able to give you a rough pattern. I haven't made any official patterns yet though. But yeah, so there's this guy, and then he's got this matching toque, which I find is super cozy. It just goes right over my ears. It's the perfect size. I think I have the back on the front because there's a little bit of a seam there, but same thing, super cozy. I love it so much. Quite windproof because of the just the thickness of the pencil roving. So actually what I did for these ones, I used Briggs and Little Country Roving. You get it in these big plates. I think it's 200 grams, 227 grams, sorry. And basically what I did was I took this, it comes with 5 strands of pencil roving all wound together. So I kind of just took an afternoon and separated them into balls of like 2 of these strands together. And then there's one with the coarse one. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that yet, but I really, really like the contrast of this, so I might do something similar. Maybe I'll make a pair of light mittens or something to go along with it. Haven't quite decided, but I still have a few of these balls left. And being pencil roving, it's the kind of thing that if you just pull on it, it comes right apart. But like many other people have shown you with Nutidin and Plotolopi and stuff like that, you can just rub it together and it just becomes one strand again. So it's quite actually not that difficult to work with as long as you are gentle. On that thread, I wanted to show you another thing that I made before these toques, but it's kind of the same thing where I was using pencil roving. If any of you guys are from Canada, you might have heard of Custom Woolen Mills. It's a mill in, I believe, Alberta. They have some really good stuff. There was a local lady that was selling some of it, so I ended up buying just a few things, and I ended up knitting a really beautiful shawl. I can't remember the name of it, and I've sent it to my sister in Australia since then. But I was on the test knit crew for that, and so I used all of this beautiful yarn from Custom Woolen Mills and made this super thick, I think it was the WinterFox Shawl. The name's escaping me, the artist, though. She's amazing. She's got so many good things. I was really happy to be on that test knit crew and get to kind of help augment the pattern a little bit. Maybe if I can, I'll show you a picture of it if I can figure out how to put it on the screen. But I had some of that left over, and so what I actually did was I took, it was either the mule spinner, no, the mule spinner's a 2-ply, I used that one for the shawl, but this one was a soft spun wool. It had 3 strands of a pencil roving in it, and so I actually separated those all out. I really, really like the tedious things, so that was really, really fun for me. And I ended up knitting a little head warmer, so it's got this little ear warmer, same thing, a little hand warmer that just fits your hands in. It hasn't quite felted that much yet, so it's not that windproof. I'm wondering if it'll get any better or if I should just knit a liner for it, because at this point in time, if there's any sort of wind, which always happens on the west coast, your hands get a little bit chilly. And then I made a cowl as well, and this is all just a basic cable pattern. It's nothing super, super fancy. I debated writing it up in what I was going to call the Parksville Beach Cowl, because it really reminds me of the ripples in the sand on this one beach that's about, I don't know, like a 45-minute drive from my house up here in Nanaimo. Yeah, and it's just got a twisted rib border. Probably can't see it super well, but I really, really like twisted rib. It's super cozy, and having these 3 together just makes me, I don't know, it feels like a match set, which I really like. But those guys are really fun to knit with. Because it was pencil roving, and this one was actually quite thin once I had separated it all out, I definitely had to be really delicate with this one. I knitted this on, I think, 2.75mm needles, and it was a bit of a learning experience, because that was my first experience with pencil roving. These ones I knit on 4mm, and these were also on the 2.75 because double point needles are actually kind of fun. Anyway, so that was this match set that I made for myself. I do tend to give things away a lot of the time, so I don't actually have as many things to show because most of my objects get given away. I have recently gotten into sock knitting, and by recently I guess I mean the last couple of years. It's actually a lot of fun, but I've learned that I'm really good at making socks that don't fit me or the intended wearers. I was originally making a pair for my dad's friend, which ended up fitting my partner at the time. I've made multiple pairs for myself that don't actually fit me. They end up being too long because I end up gauge swatching but not being patient enough to like block the swatch to see how it's actually going to react. You know, problems. But this pair is the first pair that I've made that actually fit me like to a T. I've sort of tailored the toes, so the toe box is actually wider than the rest of the foot, which I really, really like, because I've got little monkey feet. They're quite square, so that's really good. So far, I've only ever done the German short row heel, so I usually do like some increases and then do the short row heel and then kind of go back up. I'm a little bit scared to do the other kinds of heels. They just, I don't know, having to pick up stitches and hope that you have the right count just scares the living bejeebus out of me. My dear friend Tanisha, she uses that with all of her slippers that she makes, and I'm always fascinated, and I might get up the courage one day to actually do that, but at this point I'm gonna stick with the short wall heels because they're my favorite. Very recently I did finish this toque. I just wanted to use up some yarn that I had. There's a couple little bits of acrylic. I'm generally quite picky in like my woolly wools, but you know, everybody has some acrylic yarn that they use for teaching other people, and I had this one thing of acrylic, and I have this entire cone of 50% acrylic, 50% mohair. I did grow up in Victoria, and that's known as the city of newlyweds and newlyweds and nearly deads. It's a bit of a saying that we have because it's a university city. There's a lot of people that go there to go to the University of Victoria and Camosun College and such. And then there's lots of people that retire down there because the weather is so mild, that we get a whole bunch of older people that are like super, super sweet, love knitting. But unfortunately, as people get older, sometimes they get arthritis. So if they get arthritis, they have this massive wool stash, and they tend to give it away for quite cheap. So this was a whole cone of, I guess, half mohair, half acrylic, and I think it only cost me a couple of dollars. So very blessed with that, but I've always been a little bit scared, and I kind of just figured, well, if I use another acrylic, I won't feel so bad for some reason. This is all that's left of that one, and then I made this nice long toque. It's kind of reversible. I did a 2x1 rib, so this is the back side. It's got kind of purling on one side, and then obviously the front is just 2x1. Probably can't see the pattern too much, but I figured it would have a very thick brim to go over your ears. And this one's going to go to one of my dear coworkers. Just got to find a time to drop it off to her, keep her head warm now that the weather's getting nice and chilly. Yeah, apart from that, and the next thing that I started right after that is a ear warmer. This is all quite recent actually, now that the weather's been getting a little bit colder. I've been getting really excited. So my roommate, we had this funny little conversation. She was like, oh, how do you keep your ears warm in the winter when you're biking? And I was like, oh, I just, you know, have ear warmers that I wear. And she was like, oh, I just suffer. So I figured I would make her an ear warmer. This is just kind of something I whipped up. It's a little bit of a 3x1 or 2x1 pattern in the back, and then I'm using some moss stitch, I guess, over the ears. And I did some German short rows just back and forth. Once again, no pattern like everything else I seem to make. So if you do want some sort of rough guidelines, just let me know. Maybe I'll post something on Ravelry. Maybe that'll be my motivation. But yeah, so it's just got the ear bits are a little bit bigger, I guess, than the rest of it. So when you put it on, it kind of hugs your ears and keeps your ears nice and cozy, and hopefully it will fit underneath her bicycle helmet. So I made this one on 2mm needles. I think it has 106 stitches in it. And then I'm working on another one that has 98 stitches, but it's on 3mm needles. So it'll be just a little bit bigger in case her head's a little bit bigger than mine. Because I don't know if everybody has a 27cm circumference head. But that's just me. The two yarns I'm using for this one of them is a discount alpaca from the Beehive Wool Shop in Victoria. Really, really sweet yarn store downtown, but they always have a discount bin of things where they only have one ball left. So I got this one for only a few dollars. It's 100% alpaca. This other one is a superwash wool that I got from a yarn store in Souk. I can't remember what it's called, but it's really, really cute. Anyway, it's this Barocco ultrafine wool. I believe it's a superwash, 100% superwash wool, which explains why that other headband, this one stretched out a little bit when I washed it the first time, so I was aware of that, and it actually fits a lot better now. So there's that. Just these two yarns together, just marled them. I think it looks really, really cute. And then I will have more Christmas gifts for people. So yeah, I guess that counts as a work in progress as well, because I'm not quite done that one. There's one more work in progress that I have had in the naughty corner for a while. It was my first sweater. I've made, a couple sample sweaters just playing around with doing raglan increases, and those went really, really well. And then I went and bought, I think it's Jennifer Steingass, the Forestland sweater. So people were doing this one a little while ago, but I bought it last year, and I've had to rip it back, I think, 3 times now. So really, at this point, all I have is a neckline, and I've got the short rows done, so this side is a little bit taller than this side, and it's been sitting on the needles in a bag, staring at me for a while now. Maybe I'll get onto that after my Christmas gift knitting, but we'll see. It's a beautiful sweater. I'm really excited about it, but I normally knit with wool, and this is my first time knitting with just alpaca when I had started it, at least probably 1.5 years ago now. And everybody knows that alpaca's a little bit slipperier. So it was a little bit of a learning experience. I also hadn't done as much color work at the time when I started, so my gauge was all different. And messed up the pattern a couple of times. But what I'm actually doing is I have these massive cones that I got from another lady who was stopping knitting in Victoria. They're like 5-pound cones, I think, of just alpaca. It's really, really thin. So these strands here are actually 3 different strands. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but it's quite thin. It's like lace weight, I guess. But I figured if I put 3 of them together, then I could do that. So I've just wound up a couple balls. One of them has 2 strands together, one of them has 1 strand, so that I could carry this around and work on the sweater wherever I was going. But like I said, I've had to rip it back a few times. So we'll see where that goes. I do really, really want the sweater. I've never knitted my own sweater before, and I figured, better try. That's the best way to learn. I do have one very large work in progress. I do also crochet. I don't just knit, and I have previously done some spinning as well. I did have a couple of spinning wheels. I ended up selling them because I thought I was going to go to school this fall, but that's been postponed. Hopefully I'm going to go next fall to get my master's degree. So I didn't actually need to sell the spinning wheels, but c'est la vie, they're gone now. So I was playing with mosaic crochet. I learned how to do mosaic crochet from Tina on YouTube. She's got really good tutorials. She does the kind of mosaic crochet where you just do 1 strand across and then you do the next strand across and you have these tassels all over the sides. So I was playing around with different shapes and I figured out how to do a bicycle pattern because I really like to bicycle and I didn't see any bicycle patterns online, so I made my own. And then from that I decided to just go crazy on Microsoft Excel, and I actually made an entire blanket pattern. So I'm maybe about halfway done now. It's quite heavy. And I don't think I'll be able to get all of it in the camera, but it's this massive thing so far. I decided that I would work from the middle and then work outwards, so that I wouldn't be playing as much yarn chicken, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I kind of started in the middle. This is I think Briggs & Little old yarn, once again, from some sweet lady in Victoria. That's what all of these tend to be. There's a Moorland wool, I think more Briggs & Little. This deep purple, actually I think might be a Cascades yarn. Cascades Heather. Yeah, Cascades 220 Heather. Once again, a very old version of it though. But yeah, so as you can see, did the bikes, and I'm working my way outwards. I have this big sort of geometric section, and then a bit more zigzags, and if the blanket isn't quite as long as I would like it, I think I'm going to just add more bicycles to it, and hope for the best. This is my first blanket ever. Normally when I'm crocheting, I'm just making little stuffed animals or that kind of thing for my friends' kids. I sent a big package off to New Zealand last year that had a bunch of water bombs and stuffies and some balaclavas and whatnot for them. But this is my first time doing a blanket and it's getting quite heavy. Side note, this is a really good project to do when you're listening to audiobooks. So I've recently gotten into audiobooks. There's a few cool ones. Like I'm listening to The Body Keeps the Score, or when the body says no, the cost of hidden stress and that kind of stuff. I currently am working as a kinesiologist, and I do work in occupational rehabilitation, so there's lots of people that haven't been working for a little while and they can be quite stressed out, so I've learned some really good tips from these books, as well as obviously helping myself, because self-help is a really good thing to do. This is kind of my blanket of devoted things learning about myself and how to better other people and their lives. So that'll be a good memory once that's done. The main yarn for that, and the reason that I actually wanted to make that blanket pattern, was because when I was in high school, so well over a decade ago, there was an estate sale and somebody was selling a bunch of wool, and I got very excited and bought a few pannier bags to go on my bicycle, like full. They were stuffed to the brim. My bicycled home with them. And then there's a few different types. Most of it though was this stuff. It's this Cara wool. It's sold in 2-ounce balls. It doesn't tell you the weight of it. It doesn't tell you like if it's Aran or DK or lace or anything, whatever. And it doesn't tell you the length of it. All it says is net weight when packed, 2 ounces, moisture content according to BS 984. Genuine Bonine knitting wool. I don't know what this means. It's made in Ireland. Lot number 126. You can tell how old it is because the tape is yellow. I'm sure that was clear when it was put on. But I have a whole box of this. And in that box there was also some Simpson Sears, some of which were actually lot number 4, believe it or not. So that was pretty cool. But I've been lugging this wool around with me for over a decade, always saying that I'm going to use it for something. I think I used it on a cowl for somebody once with a different kind of rustic brown wool that I had, but I haven't really used it much. And when you have boxes that are just sitting there full of this yarn, just staring you in the eyes, telling you that you need to do it, you eventually make a blanket pattern and end up using a bunch of it. So I just realized my nails are disgusting. I apologize. I was working on my car earlier. My bad. Couldn't get all of it out. Anyway, apart from that, the future projects that I want to work on are probably a pair of reading socks for my other roommate. I will most likely use the Simpson Sears. So I do have a whole bag of this stuff. This is from like the Sears shopping store that we used to have here. I'm not sure where else it was. It did go out of business quite a number of years ago, but this is fisherman yarn, so like those really amazing cabled knitting sweaters that people have. I'm probably going to use those, make some reading socks for one of my roommates. And then another thing that I wanted to do was use up some of this Patton's Croy yarn that I got quite a while ago. The Croy socks yarn. I'm sure most people are familiar with it. Probably going to make some socks with it. I actually have no idea. I just know that it's another thing that's been staring me in the eyes, telling me that I need to work on it. Yeah, so we'll get around to that. Haven't quite decided what I'm going to make with this, or if I'm going to combine it with something else and maybe do a bright color sort of color work thing. Yeah, or I'll work on some socks. There's literally infinite possibilities. I do not have any acquisitions. I know that's super common in these sort of knitting podcasts. I do have way too much yarn. I used to have an entire hutch full of it at my old place, and right now it is filling 5 of the quite large shelves in my closet. I have a small closet, but 5 of the 6 of them are just completely full of yarn. And if I'm going to move to do my master's, I need to maybe get rid of some of it. But, you know, you can never have too much yarn. So I'm working through those. I did buy these in the last year. Actually, in the last 2 years, I think I bought this and I bought one other ball of yarn, and that's actually been it. I've just been stash busting, and it's been really rewarding because you kind of dig through and make your projects based on the yarn that you have rather than going to buy projects or buy yarn for projects. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I hope you liked looking at all of the little things that I have to share. I pardon my voice is a little bit getting dried out. Like I said, I'm not really sure how often these podcasts are going to happen. I'm going to try not to do them super often. I just want to do them when I have enough stuff to show you guys, because I don't know, I don't want to be showing off like 1 or 2 things at a time. But yeah, if you have any ideas for things that I should knit up with the sock yarn, please let me know. And apart from that, I hope you guys are having a wonderful autumn if you're in the northern hemisphere, or spring if you're in the southern. Talk to you guys later, and enjoy your knitting.